Hello, everyone. This is Damon Pistolka again with the Exit Your Way Business Roundtable. Today with me, I've got Andrew Deutsch from Fangled Tech. How you
Hey,
doing?
Damon.
How you doing today?
Doing great.
All
Looking
right.
forward to a chat.
Yeah. Well, today we've got Andrew and I have been knowing each other for a while now, and one of the things that I wanted to talk with Andrew about is customer diligence. And first of all, can you just kind of explain to us what customer diligence really is?
When you're dealing with a customer, it's not just a dude who's going to buy stuff. It's a human being. It's a person who has interests, who has motives and otherwise. So how do you really relate to people as a person? Recently, I was in a conversation and they were talking about whether you're into B2B marketing or B2C marketing. And this really, really intelligent marketer, young person impressed me. She said, you know what? I don't do any of that. I do B2H marketing. So what's B2H? Business to human.
Yeah.
So how do we understand who the people are that we're dealing with, and how do we relate to them on that personal level that can bring them to becoming an advocate for us and the brands that we represent?
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I can imagine it is pretty important that we understand who we're dealing with, and I think in the rush to sell, sometimes people forget about that.
Mm-hmm. And if you really understand who the person is, you can understand what inspires them and what turns them off.
Yeah.
So getting involved at that level, you also know that there's certain people that probably aren't going to be the right candidate for what you're working on just based on who they are, and ones that if you really show them the benefits of what you're doing, that solves the problems for them as a person, they're going to be excited and want to do business with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So why do you think someone would want to do a customer diligence? What are the situations where this really proves to be beneficial for business people?
Well, usually people only think about it from the HR perspective. Is this somebody who's going to fit in the culture of my business, and are we going to employ them? Or if you're looking at maybe hiring a consultant, hiring an outside person, do they align with what we do? I see it from my years and years of global sales working overseas, and really understanding what is it that excites this person and really would benefit. Where are their issues, and how do they relate to those, and what can we do to resolve those issues? Because if we do, they're going to be a customer and they're going to buy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is that understanding. It really, I think about some of the stuff you can't find out as the person that's providing a service easily. I mean, it takes in-depth stuff. People talk about surveys and other ways to do it, but what are the main things you're trying to find out when you're doing this customer diligence?
Well, going back a step, when we're having those conversations in person, the diligence part of it is learning enough to know what you don't know, as well as understanding who they are, so that when you meet them, you can ask probing questions to really understand. And most people don't get heard in this world. It's very rare that people show interest in who you are and what you believe, and those types of situations are really important. People on a date sit at the table and just talk about themselves, typically don't end up with a second date. When you go out on a date and you go, I really want to know you, and I saw that you like dogs. What kind of dogs do you have, and what kind of theater and those as you're romancing in that situation? It's the same in the business place. To truly show interest, to understand the person beyond the guy with the wallet who's going to sign a PO, is an advanced skill in sales. People love to talk about themselves. If you can inspire them to do so, it's even better.
Yes. I think that's why my wife and I get along so well. That's why I'm kind of giggling, because I'm the one that doesn't say much. So, but you're right. It is about understanding them and understanding, what makes them tick and what problems they really are having, because then you can honestly tell if whatever you're selling, a solution, a product, whatever, is really what they need.
Yeah. And also by by understanding, I was just recently having a conversation with someone who's in the business of promotional materials. They give away stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And her business is based on items that are eco-friendly, items that are made from sustainable materials and things like that.
Yep.
And the business had been having real challenges selling to guys in maybe our age demographic that don't have the same feelings about the environment that she and her colleagues have as younger people in the business.
Yeah.
And we were talking about not narrowing her scope to only selling to people who believe in that environmental issue. Because in reality, what she needs to be talking to these people about and understanding is for them to understand that there's this demographic out there that if you hand them some crappy giveaway product that doesn't have meaning, it may not lead to something good. But if you give them something that shows that you understand, hey, you're interested in the environment, and this thermal cup or whatever that product is, or this T-shirt made from organic cotton shows that I understand who you are and get you talking about that, it gives you a better chance of now selling to a demographic that right now thinks you're an old fogey.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I'm thinking back. Yeah, it's pretty cool. That's pretty cool because it is really relevant in making sure that your customer understands that you understand them as well.
Yeah, and first you have to understand who your customer is.
Yes.
Because many times your customer is not the guy who's buying from you; it's who they're selling to, or who they're.
When you're doing diligence, is that one of the things that you talk about too? With if you're actually say you're doing a customer diligence for me and you're going out and talk to our customers, is that one of the things you're trying to figure out is who really is making the buying decision?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. When you start doing, there's a process that we call attractiveness studies, looking at different markets. I've got a product that I could sell into 7 different market spaces that are very different. One of the criteria for scoring those marketplaces is, do I know someone? How easy is the access to those people?
Yeah.
And are they currently culturally aligned to what we're doing? In other words, am I going to have to convince them that they have a problem that I can solve, or do they already recognize the problem that we can solve with them?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that customer diligence that comes into that. Understanding your customer and where their pains are. It may be that you have a market where, they're interested, but it's very small, where you've got a bigger one that if they can understand that they have the problem, there's a significantly bigger score in helping them. You have to evaluate that in terms of where you want to begin.
Yeah.
The days of shotgun marketing where we're just going to put something out there and see who responds is just a waste of money when we have all this technology that can really hone in and hit that specific demographic that we can help.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point too. With when you do your customer diligence and you begin to understand who your customer really is, you can market more efficiently and better. And like you said, you don't want to market to 1 million people when you know you're going to have 10,000 out of that million that are going to buy from you. You want to market the 10,000 that could be buying and not waste your time with the others if that's the way it is.
Yeah. And that customer diligence goes all the way back to these and we've had these conversations many times about the difference between tactical and strategic marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So tactical are the guys that will tell you, I can drive 100,000 people to your website. I can get you this many followers, all of that stuff, which is fine. But if there's a strategic thought process and understanding your customer, would you rather drive 100,000 people to your website or 10,000 people who fit exactly what your website's speaking to and could be your customer? And it's going to be the philosophical argument that nobody's going to agree on. But at the end of the day, driving 100,000 people to your website, if the website doesn't speak to who that person is and what they're looking for and their problems and how we can solve it, they're not going to be on your website for very long.
Yeah.
So
that's for sure. Yeah. And that's a good thing too. And like you said, it's an age-old debate of is it volume or is it quality, or can you integrate volume and quality and those kind of things too when you're talking about traffic and other stuff. But I do know from our experience in really doing diligence on our customers to better understand and have a better avatar, that really has helped us an awful lot. And I got to imagine that if you're going out and doing that as a part of a customer diligence process for someone, you do get a pretty good avatar from that.
Yep. And it's much easier to do the day that you recognize the golden rule of marketing. You're not your customer.
Yeah.
That begins all conversations in marketing. If I opened a store today only selling stuff that interested me, I'd be very lonely and very broke.
Yeah.
Because my what I like and what I want is very different many times than what the customers I deal with want.
Yeah. Right now and down, man. That's a good one. That's a good one. You are not your customer. That's for sure. So, what, when you're out there doing this customer diligence, I mean, what are some of the methods you use to go out and just understand more about these customers?
Number one, LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Social media, looking at their social media presence. Number two is just a regular Google search.
Yeah.
I love to find out that the guy that I'm going to meet is a Boy Scout leader, a deacon in their whatever their religion happens to be.
Mm-hmm.
I also love to find out the guy's kind of affiliated with some sort of odd, radical sort of mindset ideology, so I know not to step on that landmine.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that you can find out. The other thing is, if you, when you look at the LinkedIn process, you're going in, you're looking at their profile. The part that most people neglect is, who are they connected with that you're connected with?
Ah, that's a really good one.
I can't tell you how many times I picked up the phone and called Bob because Bob knows Jim, who I'm going to be calling. I go, hey, Bob, I'm giving Jim a call. Have you had dealings with him in the past? And Bob's always, because Bob's my connection and we're a community, Bob will tell me, hey, watch out for the pitfall. Don't talk about the Michigan football team. He hates Michigan.
Yeah.
Or Bob is really into the environment. So if you're going to talk about your product line, make sure you bring up the sustainable stuff.
Yeah.
You can learn a lot from the original format of LinkedIn, which has morphed into this other thing, was getting people to introduce you to people you want to do business with. You build your network, you can see their network and go, hey, I've been wanting to talk to that guy at this chemical company. I can't get him to call me. Could you please introduce me?
Yeah.
That's a very important way of looking. And then the other is, you take a step back and you look at the organizations that they were involved with and how long they were there. So if you see a guy who's had a different job every year for the last 15 years in a sequence of companies that don't make sense, that can kind of give you a little bit of background of who they are. Whereas here's a guy whose career is sequenced in a way that makes logical sense. And it's even something you can bring up in the conversation if you don't sound too stalkerish when you do it. Mm-hmm. But I like to have a real good idea of who this person is from their career, from their life. And then the goal of the first conversation is to get them talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. What are some of the interesting things that you learn when you're doing this? I gotta believe that there's little idiosyncrasies you learn that they're surprised about, or what are some of the things that come up?
From a strictly a customer perspective, it's all over the place. When I was in the global market and much of this tech didn't exist, there was a lot less information. So most of the stuff you learn about the customer honed your skills of really getting that conversation going, because the only communication was in the early days was telexes and faxes and things like that. And then it came to the internet and you could email back and forth, but even though it's so impersonal. Yeah. So you really had to have a skill set of when you got face to face with somebody and you traveled across the world and you're now somewhere for this much time, how to ask the questions to really get to know somebody. And I found people with interesting hobbies, interesting other things that they do in their life besides the business that really endeared the relationship. And I also found some people that were truly objectionable that I still had to do business with and knew immediately from what I heard and where their background and stuff took them, that although this wasn't somebody who I really would want to have dinner with, but I would have to, let's stick to business and let's figure out still what motivates this guy to want to do business with us.
Yeah, that is the one thing, if you get into someone's social media and you go, oh yeah, that's not so cool, or not something that you agree with, or that could make things challenging.
And to be clear, there have been cases where I've just chosen not to do business with somebody.
Oh yeah. That's going to happen. That's going to
Yeah.
happen. That's for sure. So, I mean, when you talk about this and customer diligence, I mean, what are the times that you're typically called upon to do this?
Well, usually when I'm doing outward reach or following up on an inbound lead for someone who wants to use services or otherwise. When I was in sales from the product perspective, selling industrial machinery and packaging, all the things that I've sold over the years, it was me researching to be able to see their needs and where they are for that purpose. Now, a great deal of the customer diligence I do is either I see a potential client that could really benefit from the services we offer, and I'm going to call on them and get in. Or if I'm doing a research project for one of my clients in private equity or mergers and acquisitions that really wants to understand more than what the financials will show them in a company, so that we can have a clear understanding of the kinds of people who would be involved if they bought the business, their skill sets, their a lot of other things that aren't necessarily sales related, but related to how is that culture going to work once the acquisition's completed.
Yeah, because that would be interesting in an M&A situation, because you're going to be, I mean, those buyers are spending millions of dollars sometimes and oftentimes, and understanding the customers, how happy they are, what's going on in their minds could be the difference between a good investment and a horrible investment.
Absolutely. Yeah. In a big part of my business right now is helping private equity and M&A look into companies. I look at anything that isn't on the financials in terms of the marketing and sales alignment. Yeah. And that skill set of really being able to dig in and understand people, we're able to create vision into a company that typically is unknown in the M&A process, and do it in a way that completely does not alert the employees that their company is possibly going to be sold.
Yeah.
But in that, getting with the salespeople, getting with and doing the research both internally and externally through our methods, we get a real clear picture, not just of what the numbers show, but what is the relationship between the sales and the marketing teams? Are they aligned? Are they aligned with the brand of the company?
Yeah.
Where are they viewed in the market compared to competitors? Do they understand the market space? All of that stuff comes from that customer diligence.
Yeah. Now, when you do this type of diligence, are you typically an outside contractor to these companies, so that when you're going and talking to a customer, is it that you're Andrew from the company, or Andrew from Fangled Tech Marketing and doing that?
The majority of the work is as a consultant. Yeah. So in an M&A situation where there's doubts and the ownership of the company agrees in the best fit scenario, one of our team is brought in as a consultant under the guise that we're there to help grow the business and look for improvements to the go-to-market strategy, rebranding, whatever it is, so that we can get in and really talk with the employees. Sometimes the potential acquisition won't allow that, and then we have other methods of being able to do that are kind of proprietary to how we do it. Yeah. But completely above board, completely honest and interested. We've got a team that does nothing but market research. So we can do a voice of customer survey for a potential acquisition to find out not just about this company, but where they are in the marketplace. Talking to that, we can look if they're in the distribution market, talking to distributors about what it's like to do business with companies within that entire industry, and who give, what's the difficulties, what are the benefits, who's the best companies to work with. There's a variety of different techniques that we have depending on the level of accessibility that we gain.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. It's just it's an interesting subject, because I think that, on the M&A side, with the kind of work we do there, I don't see buyers doing it often, but I think it could lead to a lot of heartache if you don't.
You know what's interesting is, interrupt you, but on that, most people don't do it because they don't know they can.
That's a great point. Point.
we'll talk. Originally, when we started doing it, many people said to me, and I didn't agree, but many people said to me, hey, you're dealing with finance people who will swear up and down that when they look at the balance sheet, they know everything about that company and their egos are into that. And then when you meet these people who've been portrayed in this very odd sort of way, they're not that way at all. They didn't know that the option was available, and they go, gosh, I can't tell you how many times I've had doubts, and we're not allowed to look, and there's no way for us to have that communication. And they love the fact that we're available to do that and help them, because at the end of the day, no private equity group, unless they specialize in distressed assets, wants to buy a turnaround.
Yeah.
But there's another side to it. Imagine we've gotten into companies where we recognize that because the marketing and sales team lacked certain skill sets, there's massive market upside that they're completely unaware of.
Yeah.
And that's huge, because now not only are you buying this company, but we can put a playbook together day one. And instead of you spending the first 3 to 6 months post-acquisition doing discovery, we've already done the major part of it, and we can get to business and grow that business faster.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I never thought of applying it that way, as going out and figuring out about what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, so you can hit the ground faster if you're buying a business. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, probably the biggest argument that folks have on day one is, I had no idea that I bought this.
Yeah.
And in our case, we get 3 results, one of 3. One, you're making a really good decision here. You should buy this company. Number 2, holy cow, buy it now, because there's so much upside that no one even knows exists. Yeah. And number 3, hey, red flag. We're noticing things, and there's a lot of case studies that we can share with customers as to what those are. But we've seen companies where, for example, you would never know this in the financials, but the guy who's running the operation is a huge liability based on his behavior. And I'll leave it at that. Yeah. We found companies where the sales team knows that a competitor has a better mousetrap that's come into the market in 3 months. And guess what? When it hits and they get to your customers, the customer's not going to be able to say no.
Yeah.
And you're going to lose all your sales.
Yeah.
Upside, sales team is selling to one of 7 companies in a specific niche market. And this actually happened. And we asked the question, well, you're selling to them. What about these other ones? And the answer was, well, they've never reached out to us. Red flag. Sales team doesn't prospect. Sales team doesn't nurture leads.
Yeah.
They're just waiting for the phone to ring.
Yeah.
Great upside. That's a great company to buy.
Yeah. Yeah. If you understand sales and that market you're going to move into, that would be a good one to get. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, good. Well, Andrew, it's been great talking to you today. I think this is interesting for me. I always learn something when we talk about this, because it is such an important subject. When you talk about the client avatar, you talk about customer diligence, to really understand that makes sense, and then even taking this information and going back and applying it is really good. So
yeah, the best salespeople, the best marketers in the world do their homework.
Yeah, no doubt.
Just go out banging on doors without knowing what they're banging on.
Yeah, for sure. They know what they're doing, and I've recently even we've learned a lot more about that. So Andrew, if someone gets a hold of you and wants to get a hold of you, what is the best way to do that?
They can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or they can go on to fangledtech.com and check out and inquire. Right. We've started a program a couple of years back where we call it the Pick My Brain session.
Yep.
If someone wants a free consult for 30 minutes,
yep,
they can request, and we'll set them up and have a conversation and see what we can do to help them grow their business, grow their brand, and drive more advocates to their side.
Awesome. Well, again, we got Andrew Deutsch here from Fangled Tech on the Business Roundtable today, and Andrew's explaining a little bit about something that they do that's kind of unique, and that's when they go in and do customer diligence for companies. And if you want to get a hold of Andrew, again, it's fangledtech.com, or check him out on LinkedIn and reach out that way. But thanks again, Andrew.
Thank you.
Until next time, we'll sign off for now.
Hey, thanks, Damon. Have a great one.
Bye.